the landing or the round out. Pag round out mo, pag flare mo, you are not willing to accept yung landing due to any circumstances, you will be going around. And before you round out and flare, may momentum ka nun, may speed, may energy ka, you could immediately take off. Kaya meron tayo nitong surface na to from a designated distance from the threshold. So kung yung inner approach on the end and yung takeoff on the end, si bulk landing is a certain distance through the runway intended for go around. And lastly, meron tayong tinatawag na obstacle-free zone. So, kung sa OLS, minamandate ng authority or ng law yung mga buildings na lalagpas sa OLS, doon naman sa obstacle-free zone, doon sa surface na yon, wala na tayong leniency or wala nang leniency si authority. On the obstacle-free zone, bawal na talaga magkaroon tayo ng any obstacle or surface above it. Yung obstacle-free zone is composed of the inner approach, the inner transitional, and the bulk landing surface. So if you combine the three surface, inner transitional, and the bulk landing, in total, yan po yung dapat na obstacle-free zone. So ito po yan. On the next slide, I got here a representation kompleto ng mga surfaces. I mean, hindi kompleto pala, but more on better presentation. And you could see here again, you got the transitional, inner horizontal. We got the conical. We also got the outer, and the blue and the red portion. Of course, yung blue portion, the lower part will be the approach. And the red portion, yung mas mataas ang slope, will be the takeoff. Question with the OLS or obstacle limitation surface before we move forward? Any question you wanted to raise? Go ahead. Okay, I guess wala namang question so far. So let's move forward. Okay, let's move forward if wala nang question. On the next slide, I got here a sample presentation of the surfaces presented on a Google Map. So there, we got the link here if you wanted to look. So this is a country or an airport somewhere in the Middle East. So actually, it's Muscat International Airport provided here as an example of the OLS. So you can clearly see they got two runways sharing the OLS. And again, paano pag two runways will refer sa ating datum or the reference elevation datum, yung average elevation ng mga runways available. Okay, let's move forward. So as I mentioned kanina, any obstacle or any construction of any towers or building or kahit yung operation ng ships or railway na papasok sa ating OLS can be accepted by the CAAP following two options. First option, again, is shielding. Second option is yung aeronautical study. So we'll be reviewing yung shielding on the few or remaining slide. Yung aeronautical study, as we have discussed before, it is conducted or a study or research study conducted by the authority together with the the team na kakaroon ng obstacle on conducting a research to identify yung alternative means in order to achieve the same equivalent level of safety. So it's a request or study that will be presented sa CAAP, yung aeronautical study. Just in case na hindi siya papasok sa first option na pag-aaralan natin, which is shielding. If hindi siya papasok dito and lalagpas siya sa OLS, you will have to conduct an aeronautical study proving that your obstruction will not provide a risk or will have to provide a same equivalent of safety. So shielding, self-explanatory naman from the word itself, shielding. Actually, we got restrictions here provided. List. So ayan, I got the list provided for the takeoff climb surface, the horizontal and conical surface, and the transitional surface. Except otherwise doon sa obstacle-free zone, bawal na talaga na meron tayong obstacle. But other parts of the OLS, pwede tayong mag-shielding. Hindi ko na babasahin yung mga naka-notify dito since it will still point out on the same view or information. I'll discuss it using the using the presentation on the end of the slide. So yan, directed by CAAP, a shielded obstacle does not require removal, lowering marking, or they could provide lighting required, or they could impose any additional restriction to the operation. It is upon or under CAAP pa din. And the shielding itself, let's move forward to the presentation. There we go, we got shielding. So for example, we got a permanent obstacle. And in this case, siya na rin yung critical obstacle doon sa area. So yung critical obstacle po, ma-identify siya. So let's go back here for the meaning. And hold on. There. Critical obstacle is the one which subtend to the greatest vertical angle measured from the midpoint of the inner edge of the approach or takeoff climb surface. So yung ating critical obstacle, siya yung kino-consider natin na pinaka reference natin as the higher or pinakamataas na obstacle natin protruding on the OLS. However, hindi siya mini-measured in terms of height. So later I'll be explaining kung paano siya mini-measure. So in this presentation, you could see yung part ng runway here presented, approach inner edge or the takeoff climb inner edge. Meron tayong line here. Ito yung sinasabi niyang subtend na vertical angle from the runway. So dyan natin dina-determine kung sino yung pinakamataas or sino yung magiging critical obstacle. So it's not by height again. The blue portion naman here is yung magiging shielding option. So kung ito yung critical obstacle natin, any obstacle na mapapaloob inside the blue portion, so that's the blue portion downwards, of course, will be considered as shielded. And pagpasok ka sa shielded, automatically, approve ka ni CAAP to continue your building or your tower or the obstruction. Basta papasok ka dito sa blue portion or dun sa shielded option. So the shielded option is yung critical obstacle facing on the runway. It should be 10% slope. So yan, 10% slope pababa doon sa critical obstacle natin. This blue portion will be considered as shielded. So kahit lumagpas ka on the OLS, as long as you're inside the blue portion, automatically approved by the authority. Pag mula naman sa likod ng permanent obstacle, sa likod from the runway, kailangan it's perpendicular or horizontal from the obstacle. So kung ito yung obstacle or critical obstacle, you drew a 90-degree line. There we go. Any object na papasok sa blue portion na to, kahit outside the OLS, automatically shielded and automatically will be approved by the CAAP. So that is the shielding option. Sir, bakit nagkakaroon pa rin tayo ng permanent obstacle regardless na, may law na tayo and meron na tayong designated size or measurement provided on the airport? Meron kasi ang nangyayari dyan is that bago pa itayo yung airport, meron na tayong mga obstacle on the area itself na regarded as permanent obstacle, or otherwise, may airport na tayo, hindi siya pasok na obstacle before, however, nag-improve si airport, nag-iba yung guidelines, nag-iba yung measurement, therefore, yung mga ibang buildings, papasok na siya as permanent obstacle. Another example of a permanent obstacle is yung mga natural surface natin. Just like on this third slide, yung ating mountain ranges. Automatically regarded siya as a permanent obstacle. And ayan, you could see, papasok pa rin yung principle of shielding doon sa mga permanent obstacle kahit natural surface. So 10% facing the runway, and doon naman sa likod, 90 degrees. So shielded yan automatically. Meron tayong presentation here ng dalawang obstacle or building and ng a building and a natural surface. We got the presentation here, as you could see, to determine yung critical obstacle. So, nagbe-base tayo lahat sa critical obstacle. As I mentioned nga kanina, yung ating critical obstacle is not, or it's not kung sino yung pinakamataas from the ground level, but doon sa vertical angles subtended from the runway. So, you could see two buildings here. You could, of course, visually see na mas mababa tong building na to. However, siya yung na-designate na critical obstacle on the area. Due because if you measure it from the runway, vertical angle from the runway, mas mataas siya compared dito sa building na mas malayo with higher height. So doon na determine yung critical obstacle. Subtending an angle from the runway, we could determine the critical obstacle. And again, shielding, 10% slope, facing on the runway, and 90 degrees horizontal or perpendicular from the or backward from the runway. There we go. I think that is our presentation for this PowerPoint. We have another PowerPoint. Any questions so far with regards to OLS? Go ahead. No question, class? Okay, thank you, Carl. So we have a 5-minute break and then we'll start on the next PowerPoint. Thank you. Forward, class, section 4. Our next module will be regarding visual aid. Very easy topic, but still take note yung mga information we'll be discussing. So direct information lang naman to. So we got first the visual aid, the meaning, and the following information. It's very easy to understand. So quick topic lang supposedly for this last module na to for our midterm. Hold on. So of course we got visual aid used through our airport operation or management. It composed of course of signages, lights, and even yung mga markers natin on the runway, designed to provide a information, a written or supplement written information that can be understand by the person operating on the area. So same as roads, 'di ba sa mga bahay or sa kalsada, meron tayong mga signages to provide direction, information, destination. So same with the roads, we also got that sa airport or sa aerodrome. And very important to, especially on larger operation ng mga aerodrome, and to provide additional information doon naman sa mga crew na hindi familiar with with that certain airport. So, yung mga crew kasi may base yan. Depende kung saan ka naka-base yung crew or yung pilot. Of course, if you are based doon sa airport na yon, most probably kabisado mo na yung airport. However, if hindi, we got this signages to provide supplemental information. So the module is divided for a few stops here. We'll be starting off with a visual aid, indicators and signaling device, approach lighting. Ito yung tumutulong especially sa mga Cat 1, Cat 2, and Cat 3 category airport. We got a visual approach, different kinds of lighting, and marking. So there we go. Assist the pilot on approach to an airport as well as navigating around on the airfield, essential on the elements of the airport. Let me get my pointer here. There we go. So we got the function. So the visual aid itself is assisting the crew or the pilot not only in the ground but also in the air. Example nga nun later, we'll be discussing different kinds of approach lighting. Requirement for visual aids, we got the required visual aids for and airports divided into five. We'll start with airport beacon. So we got an example of the beacon here. It's a beacon to mark yung intended use ng airport usually at night. It's always located adjacent or in the airport itself, designed to produce a narrow horizontal and vertical beam of light. So ayan, we got the picture example here. It is usually mounted on top of the control tower or a similar structure. As you could see here, may separate structure siya. Itong isa, meron pa siyang additional na windsock on the beacon. So we got four variation of the beacon light. So take a note on it. If it's producing light of green and white, it is a civilian airport. Yellow and white, that is a civilian airport for water operation. Pag tatlo naman yung kulay, white, yellow, and green, yung pinoproduce ng beacon, we got a heliport or for helicopter or rotary wing operation. If it's white or two whites and a green, it is for military use or you are approaching on a military airport. Next up is obstruction light. So as we have discussed kanina sa OLS, it is it will depend on the local authority sa CAAP, and depending on the study if mapapayagan yung structure mo inside the airport vicinity or under the OLS. And one consideration or criteria consequences na binibigay ng CAP o law authority is provide and it is marked by color red. Red. So you could see here we got on that side, I think this is electrical structure marked as red. Of course, it's near the vicinity of an airport or a runway. We got power plants here marked as red. Even yung mga buildings or terminals, large terminals marked as red yan. And as I mentioned kanina, considered obstacle or meron tayong category temporary obstacle. Kasama dito yung mga malalaking barko, railway lines, and even yung mga crane. Ayan, if you will be repairing a building, you will be using a crane, and all alam naman natin or we are aware na it will be an obstruction on the airport operation. So a crane operating near the airport or under the OLS should be also marked as red. Aircraft landing operation, since we'll be discussing yung approach system, familiar naman na kayo with this, yung rotation natin. So pitch, if the aircraft rotate on the lateral axis, that's an up and down motion, rotating po. Yaw, it is on the vertical axis, rotating left and right. Roll naman po is rotation from the longitudinal axis, rotating left and right, or rolling left and right. Yung translation naman po, this is the movement of the aircraft. So dito rotation tayo. We are rotating from an axis. From the translation naman, it is the freedom of the aircraft to move into the axis or in the axis. So swaying, that is moving from left to right. So nag-move tayo on the lateral axis. Having that is up and down on the vertical axis. So we go up, we go down. And surging naman is yung forward and backward motion ng aircraft through the longitudinal axis. It is called as the 6 degrees of freedom. Alignment guidance and height information. So very important as a visual aid also yung mga alignment guidance and height information natin. As I have discussed nga kanina, it is divided into non-instrument, non-precision, precision cat 1, precision cat 2, and 3. And to provide the information again, if hindi nyo nasulat, again, non-instrument. So VFR tayo, no instrument that will help you as a pilot. Non-precision, meron lang tayong vertical guidance. And ang isang example nun, most common natin is yung PAPI and VASI. I'll be discussing next. Precision Cat 1, meron tayong lateral and vertical by the use of the altimeter. Precision Cat 2 and 3, mas precise siya with the use of the radio altimeter. So the most common vertical guidance available majority of our runway and even sa mga ibang runway example, so example nito yung mga aircraft carrier, etong system din ang ginagamit nila. So it's the most common use. We got the VASI again and the PAPI. VASI stands for Visual Approach Slope Indicator and PAPI stands for Precision Approach Path Indicator. So the left side, I got here yung PAPI system. Mayroon siyang 4-unit system and 2-unit system. Very easy naman to understand kung paano ka ma-determine or ma-help vertically or will be guided vertically. So if you see 4 lights in white, ibig sabihin mataas ka. If you see 3 lights and 1 red or 3 whites and 1 red, ibig sabihin mataas ka pa rin, slightly high. If equal naman or you see 2 white and 2 red, that means you are on glide path. So perfect approach. If 3 reds naman and 1 white, slightly low. And if all of the lights are in red, you are too low. So it will need to be corrected immediately. And that's how the PUPI system work. Meron din siyang two-unit system, pero medyo obsolete na to. We got, of course, almost the same principle. Pag dalawa yung white, mataas. Pag white and red, we got on slope. If we have two reds, we are too low. So, in general, if balance yung red and yung white, we are on slope or on glide path. With the VASI system naman, ganito yung itsura niya on the right side of the slide. Almost the same principle. We got lights of red and white. So if you saw white over white, that's how you comprehend or read the VASI system. White over white, that will indicate too high. If you got red over white or red and white, you are on a or on the glide path. If you have both red naman, red over red for the VASI system, you are too low. So almost the same principle. If balance yung white and red, you are on slope or on glide path. Question, sir, what will be the difference of the VASI and the PAPI? As you have explained, almost the same lang yung principle, the same, even the colors of the light are the same. Ano yung magiging advantage or difference from one another? Yung PAPI system po is much accurate on the VASI system. Paano naging mas accurate si PAPI? Sa PAPI system po, marami siyang preset glide path. So pwede ka mag-assign ng glide path preset depending doon sa aircraft na maglaland. Magkakaiba yung glide path. So may konting difference kahit the same lang yan ng slope and degrees due to the height ng cockpit from the ground. So of course, if you are in a light training aircraft, so around few feet from the ground ka lang, if you are or if you will be landing a commercial aircraft, you will be a few meters from the ground. So on a PAPI system, you could adjust the glide path depending on the aircraft using the PAPI system on the approach. However, sa VASI system naman po, preset siya. Isa lang yung glide slope available. So it will be upon the discretion of the pilot and the operator or the crew kung paano sila mag-a-adjust doon sa VASI system since isang glide slope lang yung pinoprovide. So that is the main difference of a PAPI and the VASI system. Moving forward, there we go. We also have few differences on the range of the VASI and the PAPI system. I got a visual presentation here. So we got 4 miles, 10 degrees, 3.4 miles, 10 degrees. We also have indicators and signaling devices located in every airport or aerodrome. First stop is the windsock. So yung windsock po, it is used to tell the wind speed and direction of the current wind itself. So you, as the crew or the pilot, visually read it, or you could obtain it from the traffic controller or ATC if wala kayo dun sa area nung windsock. It is required by the law to have at least one wind direction indicator per airport. So kahit anong kategory niyan, kahit maliit na gravel surface airport, you are required to have one wind direction indicator. So preferably, it is white or orange or a combination of white and orange located or visible on the aircraft. Yung windsock po, ang pagbasa niyan, so yan, tumatayo siya depending sa lakas ng hangin and nagro-rotate siya depending on the direction. So yung segment niyan, as you could see, divided siya per segment. It's always divided sa 5 segment and per segment provide 3 nautical or 3 knots of wind. So if you have, same as the one on the slide, as you could see, standing yung isang segment ng windsock. So it means na we have a 3 knots of wind occurring on the airport. Pag sumagad naman po si windsock, so medyo alarming na, medyo mataas, we got 15 knots. And nagro-rotate na lang siya depending on the direction. So it could be 3 knots from northeast, 3 knots from southwest. So depending on the direction and dun sa segment na tatayo doon sa windsock. We also have landing direction indicator. Um, Almost the same siya ng um, windsock. However, it only provides kung saan nanggagaling yung or direction ng wind. So para siyang small aircraft, as you could see here on the right-hand side, yung landing direction indicator. It signify a small aircraft with a tail, and yung shape niya on top view, sort of a T, letter T siya. So konti na lang yung airport na you could direction indicator at night since medyo malaki siya and light or it has lighting system doon sa pinaka structure. So tuturo yung T kung saan yung current wind direction. Another tool we use or as a visual aid is a signaling lamp. So it is used by the ATC to conduct continuing operation in case that we have encountered radio problems. Not only on the ATC, but also or more commonly na ikaka-encounter ng radio failure on the aircraft itself. So the light gun signaling have meaning. So it only have two options, either three options: white, red, and green. And you could have it as steady and flashing. And you have the corresponding meaning here. So self-explanatory naman po. Please review and take a note on this. Probably sasama siya on the recitation or on the exam. So steady green, we got cleared for takeoff or cleared to land, and so on and so forth. So we could also have flashing, alternating, and it has corresponding meaning per light signal. Sir, how could you exercise the light signal if the aircraft approaches the airport na wala na siyang radio? We use a system or another system. It is called the transponder. So it's a separate system na madedetect ng ATC. So yung transponder po, yun yung tinatawag na, or kung narinig nyo in other term as the squawk code. So you could input a number there and you could signal or communicate, not actually communicate, it's not a two-way operation, but you could signal the ATC any information. So it's a one-way operation. I think na-discuss ko to on our other subjects sa 422. So ang squawk code sa radio failure is 7600. From there, you could inform the ATC that you don't have communication radio and you will be starting or entering the airport using a light gun signal. Sir, bakit important to squawk 7600 for radio failure? If meron naman na tayong light gun signal, hindi po ba understood na yon on the ATC that we don't have communication if hindi tayo maka-communicate approaching the airport? Yes. However, it is on the procedure to squawk 7600 since if you don't provide any signal, more on magiging threat ka on the airport or on the city. and you will be considered, not considered, but threat as a terrorist attack if you are entering without any form of communication. So it's better to provide the squawk code, or it's mandatory to provide the squawk code first if you have a radio failure. Then proceeding to the light gun signal. Moving forward, we got signal panels and signal area. With the signal panels, common to sa states, and I think Northern Europe common siya, and also on Australia. So larger area countries still uses the signal panels and the signal area. Um, ito common siya sa mga recreational part or recreational airport operation. So may designated part yan sa aerodrome to provide the signal panels and signal area. And pinoprovide siya since usually yung mga gantong airport wala ATC. So upon the enter of the aircraft, mag-circuit ka, you will have to look into the designated area for any signal presented there. And this signal panel and area have their meanings per symbol. So the first one is the X mark. So it means that landings are prohibited. So walang landing operation. So you will have to get into another airport. Next one, itong slash mark, it provides that you should observe extra precaution in the landing on that specific airport. So maraming reason for the precaution. Possibly we have wet runway, we got few birds in the area. So it's a general precaution for the landing. Next is we got this sort of dumbbell sign. Ito hindi na talaga to ginagamit. Ginagamit lang to before since meron tayong mga smaller airport still present actually on the state na hindi surface, and therefore you could indicate na yung current surface ng airport is hindi usable. So if we got a clear dumbbell, so ibig sabihin hindi usable yung mga taxiway. So it's upon your discretion to land. If may dumbbell naman, um, same or vice versa yung presentation. But as I mentioned nga, hindi na to ginagamit. So common lang siya before sa mga non-paved runway or recreational site ng mga airport. Next signal panel here, it's sort of a right angle arrow. So it means that right hand yung circuit operation. So when you approach the airport or the runway, you should perform a right hand circuit. The next is X mark. So it's provided on the runway or on a taxiway, indicating na of course close yung ating runway. We got the number here, provided to pag marami yung non-paved surfaces. It provides or indicate na yun yung current runway in use. So since walang tower sa mga gantong area, it will provide you na that runway or provide you an information that this certain runway is the active runway. Next naman, or the last one, itong parang addition sign, it pertains that currently we got glider operation on the area. Very important to indicate that we have glider operation since ang glider operation po ay wala silang, as you know, wala silang engine, wala silang thrust. They are relying on the wing and the skills of the pilot. And sa law, sa air law, if natatandaan nyo or nadaanan nyo na, above priority lagi yung mga non-powered aircraft, especially yung glider. They are always the priority. So it indicates that you have a glider on the airport and you will have to prioritize those non-powered aircraft. Next is approach lighting. I guess I'll stop the presentation here. We got around 10 slides, I think, remaining. Siguro mga 30 to 40 minutes discussion pa to for 424. Ang plan ko kasi is that next week magre-recitation tayo. So I'll be scheduling people for Wednesday and for Friday for the recitation. So for the remaining slide, ayoko namang papasukin kayo ng synchronous class on Friday for 10 slide for a short span of time. So it's up to you. Anong preferred nyo? Would you like us to have another synchronous class on Friday for the continuation, or I have you the option na mag-provide na lang ako ng recorded or recording for the last 10 slide? What's your preference? Go ahead. Go ahead. Anyone could speak. Anong preferred nyo? Do we have a sync or sync?
Recorded na lang po. Recorded na lang po siguro.
Okay, recorded na lang daw. Okay, for the, noted on that, for the remaining slide, I'll be recorded meeting na lang for the last 10 slide. It will run siguro 30 to 40 minutes. I'll send the link to Boot. And wala na muna tayong activity for Friday. Ang workload nyo lang is yung, or to watch yung recorded meeting for the last 10 slides. And for next week, again, recitation tayo. I'll be sending kung sino yung mauuna on Wednesday randomly depending on your fate. So if wala nang question, see you next week for the recitation. I'll send the recorded session kay Ruth. See you later pala muna for 422. Thank you guys and happy lunch.
Thank you po, sir.
Thank you po, sir.